Hey guys, I'm here with Steven today, and I invited him here because he was telling me about this really interesting Etsy challenge he was doing, which I thought would be insanely challenging, but also really, really helpful for people who wanted to start print on demand or already doing print on demand. So, welcome, Steven. For those who don't know you, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephen Shin. I am the founder of Hello Custom, which is essentially a personalization automation tool for print on demand sellers. So, if you sell personalized products on Etsy, Amazon, soon to be Shopify, Hello Custom will automate the personalization and fulfillment process for you so that way you don't have to do it manually. Before launching Hello Custom, I was an Etsy seller for 3 years, where in those 3 years, I built my Etsy store to $3 million revenue, where 100% of the products that we sold were personalized. So we built Hello Custom from the pain point of personalizing hundreds of thousands of products manually. I now teach everything that I learned on my YouTube channel, Hello Custom.
Amazing. And for this challenge that you had told me you were doing this month, what was kind of the motivation behind starting this new Etsy store if you were on Etsy before? And what were kind of the parameters of this challenge?
Yeah, so I love challenges in general. Like if you go to our YouTube channel, the very first 6 videos on our YouTube channel was me doing a challenge. It was the print on demand $1 million challenge where I was gonna build an entire Etsy business from scratch, document the entire thing as we try to grow that to $1 million revenue over the next 12 months, donate 100% of the profits to a charity. We ended up getting to episode 6 where I had to discontinue the challenge just due to lack of time. At the time, I had my own Etsy business where we did our own production, so a team of employees where I was the boss. We were launching Hello Custom, so building and launching a software. I was doing the challenge, I was starting a YouTube channel, and I have wife and kids at home. So there was just too much work in the day where I couldn't do everything, so I had to take a couple things off the plate, the challenge being one of them. But now that it's been a year since we, started that challenge, it was always the what if. Like, what if I saw that all the way through? Like, could I have gotten to $1 million revenue? Do those strategies still work today? Like the first 6 videos was me painting the picture of what we were going to do for the next 12 months and then just go and do it. So a few months ago, I had the idea of what if I did a smaller challenge, something that I could actually do with my workload today? What if I did everything but condensed it down to 24 hours? So build a brand new Etsy business from scratch in 24 hours and then just set it free and then document sales over the next 30 days and see if we can get to a 6-figure run rate. So that's exactly what we did. It was 24 hours, start to finish. We built everything. I set it free. It wasn't perfect, but we documented sales for the next 30 days and we did hit our 6-figure run rate.
That's amazing. In those 24 hours, what what did those first 24 hours look like? How much was set up to just creating your storefront, putting up new products? Do you have like a general breakdown of what that 24 hours looked like?
Yeah, so going into the challenge, I wanted it to be as raw as possible. I didn't want to go in there like already knowing the product, the niches, everything. That way, it's very scripted. Like if I'm struggling, I want you to see me struggling. I wanted this to be like as real as possible. If I couldn't finish it in 24 hours, I wanted to show that like, hey guys, it actually took 36 hours. Or if I launched everything and it flopped, like this was a really real challenge to show that that you can do print on demand in 2025 and it does work, yes or no. So I wanted to be as raw as possible. So in that 24 hours, and it was 24, like I made sure like I'm like showing my phone, like it is currently, April 9th, it's 11:15 and we're 2 hours into the challenge. And I have a clock behind me, so you can actually time me on the clock behind my head the whole time. But at the first 2 hours, I was looking for a product, so I ended up finding the product. The next few hours, I was looking for the niches. The next few hours, I was creating Etsy listings. It ended up being I worked for 12 hours straight. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, guys, I'm just wiped. I've been working for 12 hours straight. I have to go home and just get a couple hours of sleep. Come back at 5 o'clock in the morning. I grind for another 7 hours, and we finish everything. I think we finished it an hour early, so it was like 23 hours. But it was legit like 20 hours of working within a full 24-hour window.
That's crazy. I don't think I could do that. I need sleep so much. But with that, then how did you come up? Well, first, what product and niche did you end up selling in, if you're able to share that? And how did you come up with selling those?
Yeah, so essentially the very first step that I always do is product research because everything kind of stems from that. Like you first choose the product, then you got to determine like what graphics you're going to put on that product, and then you also got to determine like what listing images you're going to create about that product. So step one is always like what product am I going to go sell? So I started like most people, I started looking at apparel to see like do I want to build out apparel as the product type for this challenge? Where the process that I always do is I want to be able to replicate success. Like if I can go find 5 to 10 Etsy shops that launched in the last 1 to 2 years that they are selling that product type. They launched in the last 1 to 2 years, so they're new just like me, and they are able to build a store to the revenue that I'm looking to make, which is $100,000. that shows me that I can do that as well. I did find 10 shops that launched in the last 1 to 2 years doing apparel that were making six figures, which tells me, can you do that? Yes. Can I create enough listings in the next 24 hours? No, because the one thing that I saw is every single shop had over 1,000 listings. Some had 2,000 listings. So yes, you can do it, but I'm not going to be able to create enough listings in the next 24 hours to get anywhere close to what it needs to be to hit that six-figure run rate. So I was back to the drawing board. I was looking for other product types, where I then came across the 40-ounce, Stanley style tumbler. So the large tumbler with the handle, where I found one listing where it was one listing that launched 11 months ago and had over 6,000 sales, which tells me that that one product with that one design, with that one listing on Etsy made $100,000. So 1,000 listings versus one listing. Like, that's exactly what I was looking for. Where I saw that there was even room for improvement, where it was the Grandma's Garden design. So they launched 11 months ago, which tells me that they probably were launching into the Mother's Day rush, because we were 4 weeks before Mother's Day at the time of recording the challenge, which kind of tells me that is a perfect product type for this time. That my wife Destiny has 5 of those things. That that product type going into a Mother's Day rush would probably be a really good product to the time. So that was the product that we moved forward with. The niches that we ended up moving forward with was, we ended up moving forward with the Mother's Day niche, but right around Mother's Day, there's 2 other niches. There's Teacher Appreciation Week as well as Nurse Appreciation Week. So I ended up creating 12 designs for the teacher, 6 for the nurse, and 21 for Mother's Day during that 24-hour time. So I think it was a total of 39 designs.
Wow, that's quite a lot to do in one day. Do you find that when you were creating those designs, did you kind of have like one type of design in mind and then kind of just change it up? Were they completely separate designs, or how did you kind of get 39 ideas out in 24 hours?
Yeah, so great question. So essentially what I ended up doing was leveraging our design super bundle, which a part of that includes 1,000 Canva design templates for print-on-demand products that they were market research for Etsy specifically. They were designed by graphic designers, so they're good designs, and they're templates for people who like to use Canva. So essentially what I did is I went into the vault of 1,000. I cherry-picked out 12 for teacher, I cherry-picked out 6 for nurses, and I cherry-picked out 21 for Mother's Day with grandma variations as well. And I just made them unique, slapped them onto the Tumblr, and set them live onto Etsy, which was also really cool to see that I took 39 out of the 1,000, put it onto a relevant product at a relevant time, and was able to get to a six-figure run rate in a matter of days.
That's amazing. And I think probably everyone watching is pretty much wondering, after the month, what did you really see? What happened after you spent those 24 hours as well, kind of building your store? What did the rest of the time look like?
Yeah, so once I set everything live, again, this is a real challenge. So I didn't know if I was going to get any sales whatsoever. If I were to kind of paint the picture of like the sales ramp up, the biggest fear going into the challenge was, normally you want to launch products 8 to 12 weeks before a holiday or event, because it does take Etsy time to index your listing, to start showing your product, to start using your ads. And I was scared that I was going to be ramping up but missing the Mother's Day rush. Like, I ramped up too late, so that was a big fear. So like day 1 was zilch, day 2 0, day 3 0, day 4 0, day 5 0. At this point, I'm getting a little nervous. I was like, are we just gonna miss Mother's Day? This is gonna be a pretty boring challenge if it was like all that fun and hype to just like nothing on the back end. Yeah. And then on day 6, we finally got our first sale, cha-ching, $19.99 from someone named Jean in Maryland. So that was really cool to see that first sale come in on the 6th day. And then from there, sales just started coming in every single day. Because I think at that point, we are now indexed. Etsy now knows where to show our products, and our ads are starting to show, to where I think it was on the 12th day, we had a $307 day on the 12th day, which is a 6-figure run rate. So we hit our goal 12 days post-launch. And it just continued to ramp up to where on the very last day, which was 25 days post-launch, we had a $671 day. So we went from zero to $671 a day from everything we built in that 24 hours, just letting it go, and then letting it just let Etsy do its thing. It's pretty cool to watch.
That's so cool. And for the ones that were selling, did it come from all one listing that did really well and kicked off? Did you see it across multiple listings, or what did that look like?
Yeah, so the reason why I love doing design variations, like I mentioned, we did 6 for teacher, we did 12 for teacher, we did 6 for nurses, and 21 for the Mother's Day, is that, let's say for the teachers, we have 12 listings for teachers. They're all going to have the same title, they're all going to have the same description, they're all going to have the same tags. There's only so many search terms that people will search for a teacher Tumblr that are relevant to that product type that actually has search demand. So all 12 of those are competing against each other, which is what I found is out of the 12, one will get rank, and I think Etsy will suppress the rest because they don't want one person taking up page one for that search term, teacher Tumblr. So that's kind of why I use design variations, where I put all of my designs as variations on all of my listings. So it doesn't really matter if, design variation C ranks, because on listing C, they can buy A through F. So kind of what I saw was everything went live. One of my teachers started to really ramp up, one of my nurses started to really ramp up, and one of my Mother's Day. So only 3 out of the 40 really started to get rank, was getting like 80-90% of the sales. But within those sales, the sales were kind of spread across the other designs.
Okay. That's kind of what I've always found too. Like I have a handful of listings, and I can't remember where I read this stat somewhere that, yeah, it's like 10% of your listings will bring majority of your sales, and that's 100% exactly what I see too. Were the ones that became bestsellers for you surprising? Sometimes I always find that the one that I did not expect to be the bestseller is the one that becomes a bestseller.
Yeah, that's kind of why I love design variations, because like going into launching the product, in my mind, I'm launching them because essentially I did the research that tells me this is going to be a good design. I put that effort into every single design, so I'm essentially everyone should be a winner. But so therefore they're all going out with the same, like, where I think they would all win the exact same, but then one will take off. Like I remember when I first started on Etsy, the very first product I launched was face masks during COVID, and I remember one of the products that we launched was like a dog, face mask with patterns on it, and I couldn't find any face masks patterns for corgis, and it was the most ugliest pattern I could find, but I needed 6 to kind of fit my design variations, and that was our best seller for like the first month, and I was like, that was literally just the one I threw at the wall, but it was our best seller. So again, you don't always know which one's gonna be the best, but by just putting them all out there, you let Etsy do its thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's been so many times where it's like, this one I don't love. I'll just list it because I'm already like spent so much time on the design, and then it does so well. And you're like, oh, that was a great surprise.
Yes.
And since your history is in personalization, were all of these personalized tumblers as well?
100%, yeah. So 100% of the designs in the Design Super Bundle are all personalized. 100% of the products that I launched in the challenge, for also in my own business for the 3 years, were all personalized. Just because I find that personalized products sell best on Etsy, especially as like a giftable product. So going into, again, like Mother's Day, like people are buying gifts for their mom, for their grandma, for nurse appreciation, for teacher appreciation. Like those are gifts. And typically when you receive a gift with your name on it, it's way more personable, so it's way more giftable. So personalization really does well with giftability. And so I think that really helped them just take off, as the fact that they're personalized. And with that, we did sync up everything in that 24 hours, was syncing up everything to Hello Custom. So we did create all the templates on Hello Custom. I think it was on the 13th day. So we had that big day on the 12th day where we had the $307 sales. We sold 23 tumblers that day, which normally to manually personalize and manually update 23 orders would take maybe 1 to 2 hours depending on the person. Yep. And we're just getting started. So it was really cool. Like, man, this would normally take like an hour to 2 hours. I did it on my couch, on my phone in 30 seconds. So it was really cool to just see using Hello Custom now versus what we used to do when we had our shop a few years back.
Amazing. And for people who can't math like me, how many sales in the month did you get after launching?
Yeah, so we ended up selling a total of 200 tumblers. So we sold total revenue was $5,109 across a sale of 200 tumblers.
So insane. That's for a first month is amazing. And to start getting those sales rolling, was Etsy ads part of your strategy here?
Yeah, 100%. So that's kind of like the biggest lever that I've always pulled to get sales and to drive rank. I've tried so many different ways to drive rank and to get sales, to the point where at one point we hired agencies to run Facebook ads to our store and Google ads, and we tried it all. But what I found that worked the best was to just turn on ads on Etsy, because people are going to Etsy with the intent to buy, because it is a marketplace. And if someone is searching for, a grandma tumbler or a Mother's Day gift, they are searching for something that I have a product for with the intent to buy. And I want my product to show for that. And the cool thing about Etsy ads is they are PPC, pay per click. So you only pay if somebody clicks onto your listing. And if you've done all of the everything going into launching it correctly, like you got the right product, you took the time to create the right designs, to put the right SEO and the listing images, we want those clicks. We want as many clicks as possible because those clicks are chances to get a sale to make more money, right? So again, it almost turns into like an ATM where you put $1 in, you get $2 back. You're putting $1 in, getting clicks, that might lead to a sale, you get more money back. So I always use Etsy ads not as a means for profitability, but as a means to drive rank, because the number one variable to drive rank on Etsy is sales velocity. So essentially, if I want to get ranked on page one for a specific search term, I need to sell more than the other people who are on page one right now. Like I need to sell more per day than them to outrank them. But the downside is when you launch a new product, we're ranked all the way on page like 15, 20, like we're nowhere in search. And there is a rule of thumb that like 80% of sales are on page one. So if someone searches for grandma tumbler, most of the time they'll buy something on page one, or they will refine their search if they don't see what they want on page one to go look at a different page one. So if you're not on page one, you're sharing that last 20%. So sometimes just going from page two to page one can be all the difference of daily consistent sales. So if you're on page 15 where there is no sales, but you need sales to get to page one where there is sales, how do you get from page 15 to page one? So the easiest way is to just turn on Etsy ads. That way your organic is on page 15, but you're paying to promote, to show your listing on page one. That one will start getting sales. Sales velocity leads to rank. So as this one starts to get sales, you're driving rank. So at the very beginning, 100% of your sales are through paid ads. So it's less profitable, but you're driving rank, and eventually you go from page 15 to 10 to 5, and as you're going to see, like eventually you're going to get to page 1. So it'll eventually normalize where 100% of your sales are coming from ads, 0% organic, and it's going to normalize to where 80% of your sales are from the organic, 20% of ads, and you had to pay to get to that. And this is where the profitability is. So when we started the challenge, 100% of our sales were from advertising. When we finished it 25 days later, it was starting to do that process where I think it went from 100 to 60-40. I think we ended at 60-40.
That's awesome. So at the beginning, if you are running ads and they're not profitable, but they're making sales, do you kind of just see that as an investment then into growing your store? Because I know that can be a really big mindset switch that can be really difficult for someone who maybe doesn't have a lot of money early on. But is there a way that you look at it early on so it's okay to just spend that extra money on Etsy ads?
Yeah, so this is why relevancy is so important. So Etsy ads, like the cost per click average has gone up in time because more people are adopting Etsy ads, therefore there's more competition and it is a bidding system. So Etsy is getting more expensive for advertising, which makes it exponentially more important to be relevant. That essentially I choose relevancy over search volume. So they might be less searches, less clicks, but they will be more cheap. So for example, some of the tumblers that I sold was like a grandma tumbler, but I went more granular where I had a Nina tumbler, a Gigi tumbler, a Nana tumbler, because those are different names that people call their grandmas. My kids call my wife's mom Nina, so that would be a Nina tumbler. If you look at the search volume of grandma tumbler versus Nina tumbler, there's way more search volume for grandma tumbler, but there's more search volume, but it's not relevant. Like if I'm looking for a Nina tumbler, I'm going to be searching for Nina tumbler, and I want the design on the thumbnail to say Nina on it. So essentially choosing relevancy over search volume will help you be more profitable in your advertising. And again, just knowing that like, hey, Etsy ads might be a little bit in the red at the beginning, but if you can project that like, man, if I could just get to page 1 where my ad cost right now could go down 4x or 5x, going from 100% to 20x, imagine if I spent 5 times less on that. Would I be okay with that? Yes, that just might take a week of letting it run out. But at the same time, you can also optimize your ads. So as you start to get clicks and start to be spending money in advertising, you can click into it and see what search terms am I paying for clicks. Man, Mother's Day gift is super expensive because that's super broad and super,
Yeah.
like that's super broad but super competitive. I'm going to turn off Mother's Day gift for my Tumblr. I'm going to turn off the really expensive ones and maybe leave on the hyper specific, maybe lower hanging fruit until I get to there. And then maybe when I have more budget and more revenue coming in, then I can start to turn those ones back on. But you can kind of finesse it a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. And do you turn off ads later on then once you project that you're probably on the first page now organically? Is it part of your strategy to turn those off later on, or do you just keep it on? Because there's another thought I've talked to people about and the different ideas of if you're already on page 1 and you're paying to be on page 1, are you kind of just competing with yourself?
Yeah, so I've always just left it on. So again, like this was going back a couple of years ago when I was doing a lot of volume on Etsy. since then we've been full-time Hello Custom, but also since then ad spend or cost per click averages have gone up. So my strategy might be a little bit different if I was going all the way into it, but what we ended up doing was we always left them on. And the reason why that is, again, to maintain organic rank on page one, I have to be selling more per day for that search term than the people below me, right? If I start to sell less, I'm going to drop in rank. And if there's 80% of sales on page one, and 80% of the 80% are probably on the first half of page one. So you want to be on the top half of page one to be getting as much sales velocity for that search term as possible. And if I know that 20% of my sales are coming from my ads, if I turn that off, I'm going to be making 20% less sales. That might drop me down from the top of page one to the bottom of page one. Now, not only did I lose 20% of my sales, but I lost the 80% of the 80%. It might do net negative turning it off. So that's just always my theory going into it. That was one thing that we never actually tested it. So that's just like if I were to map it out like in theory, that's why we always left it on. But again, at the same time, since then, cost per clicks have gone up a little bit. So I do see the argument of like once it's on page one, to turn it off. And yes, you might drop a little bit, but now you're making more profit of a smaller number. So I could see both working. But in terms of getting to page one, 100%, like Etsy ads is the number one vehicle to get there. Once you're there, you can kind of play with, I think.
Yes. And so after running your ads and calculating, what profit did you end up with at the end of the month?
Yeah, so during those, we ran it for 25 days. So I was going to run it all the way to Mother's Day, but typically the week right before Mother's Day, it's not going to arrive in time for Mother's Day, so sales do start to tip down. And I didn't want to do a lot of customer service after the challenge, so I ended up closing off a week before Mother's Day. That way everything arrives in time. It was a clean finish. We ended it on a big high of that $671 a day revenue. But as I mentioned, like the first month is typically trying to drive rank. So like 100% of our sales are coming from advertising. Also, part of our launch strategy is to get to page one. We launch at a break-even price because if something is cheaper, it will sell more. If it sells more, it has a higher sales velocity, it ranks faster. So that was part of the launch strategy that we would do is we would launch at break-even price. Our conversion rate would typically double. Because it's cheaper, meaning we would rank 2 times faster. So the first like 2 weeks was launching at a break-even price. So we were paying 100% of ads at a break-even price to just drive rank as much as possible.
Yeah.
When we finished it, it was right at the point where we were still kind of at that break-even price. So we made like $50 profit. But if we were to run it out, projected another month, and we got to that point of 80-20 where it flipped, where we would have spent, instead of ending at a 60% for that last week, but a 20%, we probably would have made maybe $1,500 to $2,000 profit for the next month. But we just discontinued the challenge at that point. That for the product type before advertising, we found a production partner for the 40-ounce tumbler where it is, if we sell it for $27.99 plus $9 shipping, which is what everyone else is doing, after fulfillment and after Etsy fees, $12.04 profit. So it is a super profitable product. It was just getting that rank was kind of like the main thing for the first month.
Yes. If you were to have kept this challenge going or kept the store going, what would kind of be your main focus into the next month?
Yeah, so essentially I would do exactly what I did during the 24 hours, just build it out in its entirety. So being that I only had 24 hours to build out the store, I can't, launch all designs for all niches and build out the product type in its entirety. Sometimes it takes 100 to 300 listings to build out a product type across all niches, holidays, and events. So I just chose the 3 that was the most relevant in that time. So I would just move on to the next one. Okay, now we're gonna create some Father's Day designs, move on to the next one, create some more evergreen. We're going into the summer months, so bridesmaid proposals, wedding, gifts, things like that. Then we're going into Christmas, so maybe some Christmas designs. So I would just continue doing exactly what I did, where essentially I get the designs from the bundle, make them unique, slap them into the product, launch it on the Etsy across the entire product catalog. And then another thing that I would do differently if I were to continue it out is I would be thinking again 8 to 12 weeks ahead. The Mother's Day was only 4 weeks ahead. So we did, again, capture the very tail end of the Mother's Day. I would be looking more further ahead. That way we have the full advantage of the time it takes to ramp.
Yes, yeah. For everybody listening, like holidays, like I usually try to get up at least like 3 to 4 months ahead of a holiday, just so you can start beating the other ones, people who are going to be listing those soon. If you can get ahead and start getting some of those initial sales before everybody else, you can rank higher and then you can just get a lot more out instead of realizing all in one week that you need to create 30 different listings. Yeah, so much easier to start earlier.
And the main reason why that's so important is like I mentioned, is like 80% of sales are acquired on page one. So essentially, if you're ranked on page two, that whole Mother's Day rush is on page one. 80% of that Mother's Day rush is on page one. So
Yeah.
some people went through Mother's Day and they're like, "Where was the rush? I didn't see no rush. My sales were the exact same." If you weren't on page one, you missed it, right? So that was the biggest thing with this challenge is we were ramping up where a couple of the listings were ranked on page one, but 90% of them were ranked on page two and lower. So we didn't miss a big part of the rush. But if just launching 4 to 8 weeks sooner, where there is a lot less sales velocity because the demand is way down, we're at the very beginning of that ramp up, it's going to be a lot easier to rank a product where you only need to get this many sales per day to rank to page one versus this many versus this many versus the peak, maybe the 2 weeks before Mother's Day. So launching sooner makes it easier to rank. Make sure you're on page one that way you can ride that Mother's Day curve or the next holiday or event, ride that full curve because you need to be on page one to really see it.
And for people who maybe you're listening to this and like, oh my God, I've been delaying starting my print on demand store forever. Maybe this is the challenge for me. Do you have any recommendations, things you learned throughout doing this that you would tell others?
Yeah, so I thought what I love most about this challenge is, so I went into the challenge a little skeptical, like, can I do everything in time? Will it be successful? Do these strategies still work in 2025? And essentially, I was able to fully prove it outright that you can do everything in a short amount of time. That everyone has a weekend, right? I was able to do everything in one day. So the hardest part for a lot of people is to take that very first step, going from idea, desire to like wanting to start the business to actually taking that first step of taking action to opening the store, connecting it, launching your first listing. Like that first step is going to be the hardest, but every step after that gets so much easier. So hopefully this helps someone see like, wow, so if you can do it in 24 hours, like imagine if I spent a whole month on it or a whole year, like gives you that encouragement to get started. And man, is it too late to do print on demand? I'm hearing all these people that started in 2023 or Steven started in 2021. It's currently 2025. Yes, you can still start in 2025 and find success with print on demand. The product might be a little bit different, but the process is the exact same. That you can still find success with this business model on Etsy today.
Yeah, exactly. You just need to stick with it. And a lot of people struggle with, I think, perfectionism before they start. And then that really holds them back from ever even like trying. I feel like I have the opposite disease. I am an anti-perfectionist. I do too many things and will never proofread and will never double check any of my stuff. But I feel like having the mix of both of just like, I'm going to do it. And then you'll slowly get better after time is a pretty good mindset to have. But
Yeah, and if it makes anyone feel better, there were mistakes. Like I built that whole business in 24 hours. I was sleep deprived the second half of the business. There were typos in some of my images, but again, it was done, it was live, and it still converted, right? So again, just like sometimes you have to build a parachute as you're jumping out of the airplane to force yourself to take action. But yes, again, that first step, make sure you watch this and just get started.
yeah, just starting is way better than just perfectionism. And I think it was a book I read, like 1% Better, which talked about how, like, even just doing things every day, you might not realize you're going to get slightly better. So maybe you don't have to go as crazy as doing a 24-hour straight, but just having more consistency of being like, okay, maybe I can do that 24 hours in 3-hour chunks and stick with it for 2 to 3 weeks. But if you really want to make it work, I highly suggest doing a longer, kind of like what you mentioned. If you had more time to do this challenge, how many listings would you have tried to get up? Is this something you would have tried, or like how much time do you think you would have put towards this?
Yeah, so the way that I've always attacked Etsy is I like to build out one product type at a time. So in this case, if it was the 40-ounce tumbler, I need to build that out to its entirety because I've already taken the time to create my listing images. I've already taken the time to kind of like create my Etsy eye of like what designs really look good for this product type because what sells well on a T-shirt might not sell well on a mug, might sell different on a tote bag, or if it's the same design as the orientations might be a little bit different to fit that product type specifically. So I would have saw this one all the way through to maybe 250, 300 listings. Essentially, I would just do the market research process to see again, like what are all of the niches, holidays, and events that are relevant to this product. And then just make sure that I have a design for that. If someone is looking for a retirement gift, if I feel like that the 40-ounce tumbler is relevant for that, I want to have a design for that. Or if, again, there's Halloween, there's Thanksgiving, there's Christmas, there's all the big holidays. Make sure I have designs for that. That if someone goes to Etsy and they're searching for something, if I feel that the 40-ounce tumbler is relevant for that search term, I want to have a design for that. So it probably would have taken maybe a month to build out the prototype in its entirety and then just set it free. And then I would just move on to the next prototype from there.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, it can sound really overwhelming to get to like multiple hundreds of listings, but it is possible. Kind of when you were talking, it just reminded me of this question, but with building out all your mockups, did you use the same mockup for every listing? And have you ever found that to be a detriment? I do, but
Yeah, so again, I love just I don't know if I call myself like a lazy entrepreneur, but what I found is having the same listing images for the entire product type, it works, right? Because if I essentially I spent so much time creating those listing images that like I used to spend like a week on just the thumbnail because that image is so important that people are scrolling through Etsy. You have a split second to capture their attention. Like I need that thing to just stop the scroll and to get the click to then have the opportunity to convert them into a paying customer. That like I go to page one and I just study page one, like what blends into the background, what pops. Okay, I want to add that to my image. What is everyone doing and what can I do different? Okay, I want to add that to my listing images. How can I put badges on there? Everything I can put on that main image to make it stand out as much as possible. So by putting all of that time and research and the science into the listing images, from the thumbnail, the how to order images, the social proof image, the features, benefits, the love it guarantee, like we really get down to a science that if I had it be different for the different products or different for the different niches, you might be able to make it a little bit more relevant if you have different for different niches, but there was so much effort into that. I feel like if I were to do anything different, it would be subpar too. So again, this is going to be the set I'm going to use for all of my designs for this product type in its entirety. And for the most part, the way that people come to Etsy is they come to Etsy, they search for what they're looking for. For example, grandma tumbler. They search for it and they see a listing, they like it, they buy it. Sometimes they go to the shop. Like 90% of the time, they're just buying that product,
yeah.
where they're not seeing your whole shop and they, oh man, they have the same listings for everything. But again, even when they do come to the shop, I don't think it's going to hurt having the same combination for all of that product type.
Yes, I use the same mockup so much. And even with like apparel, you can switch it up a lot more. But I found once you find the one that works, just sticking with it. And I know a lot of people have the same issue. They're like, don't people come to your store and realize it's all the same? Like, it doesn't matter as much as you think.
Yes,
If you have a photo that has history of doing really well, it's probably going to do well for other designs as well.
exactly.
Well, I know you were creating a whole video tutorial around all of this. Where can people find you? Where can people watch that full video of this whole challenge to learn more about it?
Yeah, if you guys want to go watch this challenge, watch me build the entire business from scratch over 24 hours and see the results. I kind of gave away the ending results here, but if you go to our YouTube channel, Hello Custom, you'll be able to see the video of how I built a $154,075 Etsy business in 24 hours. That's the
Insane.
title of the video, live on our YouTube channel, Hello Custom.
So thank you so much, Stephen.
All right, thanks guys, take care.